Welcome to the Radical Exchanges podcast. My name is Jess Scully. I'm the Executive Director of Radical Exchange. We're a global network and a foundation that deploys technology and creativity in service of expanding community agency, building more resilient democracies, and reimagining markets and ways of sharing. We invite you to join us in a spirit of radical experimentation and radical imagination as we prototype a future we can actually look forward to. In this episode, we're joined by Yuting Jiang from Agora Citizen Network. Yuting is an innovator who's working to bridge division and build consensus amid conflict and polarization. So welcome, Yuting. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Jess, for inviting me.
Tell me more. Tell me about your background and about Agora Citizen Network, please.
My name is Yuting, and CEO and co-founder of Agora Citizen Network. It's a radically reimagined digital town square. Our goal is to rehumanize and depolarize citizen dialogues.
I mean, this is something that is urgent and really necessary in this moment we're in, where social media heightens and exacerbates polarization and tribalism. But you started on Agora Citizen Network a couple of years ago. What inspired the development of the network?
Yeah, so we started working on this 2 years ago, and our starting point was really the observation of how all our major social media were originally designed for entertainment. They were built to help us keep in touch with friends and just for having fun in general. So my co-founder and I started thinking about what if we can design something from A to Z for politics, for a place where people can not only broadcast their messages and follow influencers, but they can really engage in meaningful discussions at a large scale. So that became the starting point of Agora.
And you're inspired as well by the, I suppose, polis model of deliberation, where it's not about pitting people against each other, but maybe finding points of common ground and points of divergence. Can you explain that a little bit more, please?
Exactly. So we found out about Polis and all the wonderful experiments that it has run at city scale, even at nation scale in some situations, and it was truly amazing. I read an interview that Colin McGill, the founder of Polis, did, where he said Twitter is great for starting a movement, but it's not great for writing a constitution. So we thought, we need social media that can do both. So that's really what convinced us to extract the math, the algorithm from Polis, and to apply this model to Agora.
And speaking of starting a revolution, you live in France a lot of the time, and in France, I guess it's one of the places in the world that is most famous for taking to the streets. I mean, the culture of protest and political engagement in France is something that's known around the world. But there's, I guess, a question about whether that show of social solidarity or show of discomfort, whether that is able to be translated into something more meaningful, or even to understand what people are taking to the streets about, right? And so recently you ran a really interesting deliberation during France's Bloquons Tout strike. Can you tell us a bit about the big strikes that took place and the context for the deliberation that you ran?
Yeah, so in September, we collaborated with a team of facilitators called Life Catalyst, and who really wanted to run a consultation on the strike called Bloquons Tout. In English, it means let's block everything. And that's literally what people wanted to do, because they were really frustrated and upset at the budget plan that was proposed by the ex-prime minister, who has since stepped down. And so it was really a very intense moment. It was also it felt like the follow-up protest to the Yellow Vest from pre-COVID times. However, during a national poll, the poll found out that 46 of French people, they didn't necessarily support the strike. And so the facilitators, they really wanted to understand also what do people want to propose besides from wanting to block everything. So basically, okay, except that, okay, we agree that we don't like this budget plan, but what else do we want to propose? So became the context of this consultation that we run together. And it was truly an amazing experience. The facilitator experts, Jean-Loup and Gaëtan, they have been raising awareness of police in France for a few years, and they made a lot of YouTube videos. They also wrote books also on this in France. And so we started collaborating since last summer. So basically when we started building Agora and involving them in the process of design. And so this Bloquons Tout experiment, that's the first pilot since we launched Agora officially in the summer.
I think it must be such a common occurrence, right? Where, France has been through, I think, something like 5 or 6 prime ministers in the last 2 or 3 years, like a huge moment of institutional instability, and at the same time, people expressing this discontent, unhappiness with the budget. But perhaps there's 50 different reasons why people are unhappy with the budget that brings them onto the streets into a protest or into a strike. And so through this deliberation process, you're able to put a little bit more depth and detail behind, the reasons that brought the people that participate in the deliberation out onto the streets, what brought them into the strike. And so you've written about, through that process, uncovering not just bipartisan consensus, but tripartisan consensus and different points of agreement and disagreement. Can you explain what the feedback you got through this process and what you're observing through your analysis as well?
Yes. So to set up the consultation, the facilitators, they prepared 20 seed comments from different angles to kickstart the consultation. So when they sent that out, participants, they only needed to vote agree, disagree, or unsure on these different statements. However, they also had the freedom to add their own statements. Eventually, we collected more than 100 different statements from more than 200 participants during this process. So how the tool works is that it's like police. By clustering people who tend to agree, disagree, and similar patterns, we can identify which ideas made them distinct from each other, but also which ideas bridge them. So this is what we call common ground inside the tool. We want to highlight that despite the differences among all these groups, there are some consensus that is established through this process of voting on different statements.
Yeah, I mean, it would be really illuminating, I suppose, when you go to a protest. You assume that the people standing next to you are there for the same reasons that you're there, but it's maybe only through a process like this that you start to uncover people's unique perspectives and unique reasons for coming and being a part of a public, civil movement.
Exactly.
Mm.
Exactly. So what we found out is that the top consensus agreements, they include, for example, to tax the ultra rich, and also they call for more transparency in the government. And however, there are some disagreements in how radical these movement should be. And some people, they even call for the having like the Sixth Republic. And that idea is not shared by everyone in this consultation. So we can really see the degrees basically of a reform, of change that people want to see. And I think this is normal, especially since the President Macron dissolved the National Assembly last year. And then basically all of the left-wing parties had to form a huge coalition in order to win majority. And a lot of these parties, they have a lot of disagreements on how things should be done. So even they are within one coalition, there's still a lot of conflict and tension. And I think this consultation also reflected that. But what is important is to also, to respect each other's differences, but also to highlight that, but there are things that we all share, and let's focus on the things that we share.
I mean, that idea of starting from bridging statements and starting from common ground is so critical. But I suppose when you're in a media dialogue or landscape that suggests there's two points of view, two extremes, and you either have to be on one side or the other, you end up with these really simplistic divisions of beliefs or policy preferences. But instead, you map what you describe as the opinion landscape. Can you tell me about how the Agora tool helps to differentiate these different clusters of sentiment and preferences across the opinion landscape, so that it's more than just left and right?
Yes, so based on how people click on agree, disagree, based on all these votes, the machine learning algorithm, they would identify clusters of participants who tend to share the same set of beliefs or disagreements. And then we also run a LLM model on top of it to summarize and to give a label to these clusters. And so it's done in two processes. The machine learning is really agnostic to what language that people speak. It's purely based on voting. And then the second part, using LLM, is to just summarize the groups based on their representative opinions, and to help people to make sense of what these clusters mean. This is something that we bring to Polis as well. Because in the original Polis, we would have clusters from 2 to 6 different clusters, labeled as A, B, C, and D, and so on. But here, we really want to have a tool that is easily understandable for people who don't know about Polis, and who for whom it's complicated to make sense of these statistical data.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that appeals to me about the platform, is that there is a way of identifying with the group that you fall into, but also for me, making sense of other people's perspectives as well. Quite often there'll be a group that's like the reformers or the reimaginers, or there's the the people who are interested in the traditionalists, or so it gives you a way of putting a handle maybe on the different spectrum of or the opinion landscape within an issue. And do you think that helps people? Do you think it helps enhance dialogue and enable future discussion, because people now see that there is a kind of a right or a wrong on an issue, or a black or white, or left or right? It's more nuanced and kind of more detailed than that.
Yeah, I definitely think it helps people to see where everybody stands and where they stand as well. And for a lot of people, it's also fun. We get the feedback that it's fun, that hey, Agora says that I'm a reformist here, and then they find out that so what that means in the analysis tab of the app. So that was our goal, to make this process also as fun, gamified as possible, although it was designed to be very structured.
Yeah, I think that's a really fun component and a value add that Agora brings to, that foundation of Polis that some people might be aware of already, is that it is quite playful and there's something very humanizing about seeing yourself as being, in the instance of this one deliberation, as belonging to this kind of thinker or this kind of cohort. So we were inspired at Radical Exchange by what you've created at Agora Citizen Network, and we decided to undertake a deliberation as Radical Exchange on the platform. And so right now we're inviting the Radical Exchange community to help us on redefining and reaffirming our shared values as a network. So that consultation is open right now, and I invite anyone who's listening to this to jump on and play and help us in that process. So, Yuting, what advice do you have for us as users of the platform? What kind of statements are good seed statements? What are going to help? What kinds of statements are going to help us get the best out of our community, or help to illustrate points of division or contention?
I think it's important to have very diverse seed comments, seed opinions from different perspectives, as a way to make people feel included. That that not all the seed comments, they come from one side, but we try to be as inclusive as general, and that also inspires others to share new ideas as well. And I think Radical Exchange has done a great job at providing these the starting seed comments, and then what we can do to expand this consultation is to look at where the major consensus and where the major divergence is, and to perhaps to iterate on the common grounds statements, taking into consideration of the divisive opinions. Or we can also have opinions that try to clarify the divisive parts. So this is what we did also for the the Bloquons Tout experiment as well. For now, it still takes human effort to make this for this process. However, we also hope to have more AI capabilities to suggest new statements by AI from the future that people can use or to adapt. So it will be even more accessible.
Well, I think what it shows us is that this is the beginning of a process, right? Of teasing out the way our community feels and what the priorities and values of our community are. So I like that little piece of homework, really, essentially, that this deliberation, this consultation, is the gateway to the next consultation, where we dive deeper into those statements, where we agree, but also where we diverge, and we tease through the detail. And that's something that I think is still a human and communal process, as much as we can use the tools of AI and other platforms to tease them out.
Yeah, it's essentially a very iterative process, because it's a co-creation. It's to co-create something together as a community.
I love what you've created, and I really appreciate you taking the time to share it with us, Yuting. I think there's something really refreshing after 15 years, maybe more, of social media that's been so much about pulling us apart and putting us into separate camps, and so much about broadcast still, and much less about engagement and finding places where we agree. Seeing what you're creating and the tools that you're creating and how you're applying them gives me a lot of hope. So thank you so much for your work, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much as well.
If you're interested in joining the Radical Exchange deliberation, go to Agora Citizen Network or look at the links in the show notes for this episode. We would love you to participate in this deliberation on Agora Citizen Network. Thank you for joining us. I'm Jess Scully. I'm really excited to have you join us on the next episode of Radical Exchanges. Thank you.